All right, time to get into some Gophers talk. Gophers come off a heartbreaking loss today to Northwestern, which I said in our show yesterday, or I guess it was this morning. Um, Northwestern was not an easy opponent. All right. And this game did not go how I thought it would be. I thought it'd be definitely more defensive than what it was. And I think anyone could attest to that because today there was no defense of skills anywhere on the field, anywhere through the game. Um, I mean, let's just get right into it. Talking about the game here, the first half, obviously, I mean, there was good offensive plays, some shots being taken downfield by both quarterbacks, but all in all, 12 penalties by or combined between both teams in the first 20 minutes of the game. Not ideal. I mean, you don't want to be in that kind of spot anywhere in the game. And in the first 20 minutes, you like it unacceptable. And it's each team cost themselves. Northwestern definitely a bit more than the Gophers, but Gophers got a lead at the end of the first half. I will say my favorite play of the first half, 4th and goal, 1 yard line. We all know the play. Darius Taylor. That play design was perfect. Move everyone to the left side. I think they had everyone going to the left, and then it was the toss to Taylor right on going down the right, which was just genius in my opinion. They're expecting something up the gut. I mean, who really doesn't? When you come in jumbo package right there, no wide receivers, they're gonna expect something right up the gut, and that's what Northwestern. That's what they went for, just stuffing it. They didn't get it, and everything went well off of that. It was a perfect play call, and I really liked it. There we go. There we go. Got a cool aesthetic now on the screen. Good looking right there. All right. That was my one play I liked in the first half. I mean, there was other plays I liked, but that was my favorite one. Perfect play design and perfect time to use it. Let's just skip all the way to where it started getting. Yeah, it was a super fun game to watch. It really was. Um, I want to go to Drake's fourth touchdown, the one to Lemecki. Brockington, that touchdown right on the inside corner of the end zone. I want to talk about how much of a veteran route that was by Lemecki Brockington because what he did to score that touchdown, it's not what jumps off the page. Just like it was a great catch. It was a great route, and I'm going to talk about the route more. Drake Lindsay corks back as Lemecki. He's already looking back to him, which you don't always want to do as a wide receiver. You want to sell the route a little bit more. So I guess that part wasn't as strong as what I'm saying, but he's looking back. He sees Drake cork back. And if you go back and watch Lemecki's head, it goes up and towards the corner of the end zone like it's a fade. He puts his arms halfway up his body and his eyes up, acting as if it's a fade towards the corner of the end zone. That gets that corner to plant its feet, come kind of cement, and go vertical. That corner goes up the field trying to guard that fade. And Lemecki, this was a perfect, just a veteran move. Obviously, the play call was for him to run that little hitch, that little curl to the corner of the end zone by the pylon right there. But the heads up movement from Lemecki to fake it as the ball is about to be in the air and then come back. And he had a yard and a half of separation because of that, because of this corner flipping his hips and going vertical up the field and not being able to adjust off of that, which I thought was a perfect route by Lemecki. And it was a great touchdown and a great drive for everything that matters there. One other thing, Coy Parrish, your best returning game so far. Almost returned the one, got ran down by that. I think it was the kicker. Either way, the kicker took a perfect angle and cut him down right at the 5 yard line, but we capitalized off of that. He also, Coy, you gave us a spot at the end. You gave us a spot on that last kick return, got us to the 45 yard line. Great job there. All right, I'm going to give some credit to Northwestern here. They put together just a fantastic drive with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Northwestern ran basically all of that time down, getting chunk by chunk by chunk run plays, short passes. They wasted 6 minutes of that clock, and left 53 seconds for the Gophers to work with. And they managed to waste all of the Gophers' timeouts as they did that, which I think that's an even bigger part of that because Northwestern, I mean, all game they had whatever they wanted on offense. Preston Stone was near perfection today, and it that's not common to see from him. He's been, like I said in the show yesterday, he's done exactly what they brought him in to do, and that is limit turnovers, which he's done that perfectly, and he did it great today. But uh, the main reason for that is when you have the number one amount of sacks in the Big Ten, this is not the Sun Belt or MAC conference. It's the Big Ten, and you have the most sacks as a defense. And then you get none today and barely get any pressures. You had a few, just a handful. I wonder what a college D1 quarterback is going to do to you. And Preston Stone showed exactly what I'm talking about. He threw for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns and led this amazing drive at the end. This drive is not going to get talked about by the media. 8 minutes wiped off of the clock, left the Gophers manageable amount of time, but they made them use all their timeouts left, and everything that they did there, they needed to do, and they executed perfectly. It was really nice. And then, so let's go through that Gophers drive, okay? Coy Parrish returns it, gets us a great return, gets us the ball right at midfield, okay? And you're like, wow, 53 seconds. This is some time, or 48 or whatever it was. This is some time to work with. How are we going to do this? Well, the first play, Drake Lindsay is going to find Javon Tracy again. And what a day by Javon Tracy, I will say. What a day. That's why we brought him from Miami, Ohio. That's why we got him. And that was a perfect throw. A super high-level throw right there, middle of the field, over a linebacker in the middle of the field, placed right in the bucket. 33 yards on that. And then this is where it started getting a bit choppy. Our second tight end, or maybe it was Gears, I forget. Whoever was on the flat, the refs need to call that pass interference because, I mean, the broadcaster said it there. That linebacker or corner, DB, whoever hit our tight end on that, they did get there early. I mean, our tight end couldn't even get his hands up. I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get it wrong, but it's either Gears or I don't remember. He couldn't get his hands up. I mean, that's obvious pass interference, so they missed that, which stinks. But you cannot kind of let that affect the drive a little bit. So then the Gophers hit a 4-yard drag route, I think it was, to who was it? Maybe Jalen Smith. I think it was Jalen Smith. And then the clock's at 18 seconds at that point. It's winding down, and then they can't get the play off until it's. I would think I think they snapped the ball at 7 seconds. I mean, it's like you did what you needed to do, get down there, but after that, you need to. Well, okay. First of all, going back to the play for Jalen Smith, that 4-yard route. You need more outbreaking routes trying to, when you don't have any timeouts, you need more outbreaking stuff trying to get out of bounds. And if you don't, at least you stop the clock by like an incomplete pass or something, because that was the worst case scenario there. Yeah, you gained 4 yards, but obviously it didn't end or it didn't matter with our kicking situation. But you need to get to the sideline. And Smith tried his very best. He got like 2 yards away from it, but there was no way he was going to do that unless he kind of negated yards and ran backwards to get out of bounds, which maybe he could have done. But that's what you got to do there. But then the next play, they snap the ball at 7 seconds as the clock's running, and then they throw it to Smith again on the sideline, all the way down to the 5-yard line or something. It was incomplete, obviously. It was never really going to be completed, but I mean, you can make an argument that there should have been pass interference on that play too, because I mean, if you look at it, it's pretty obvious. The corner's pushing him out of bounds, and it's just he didn't give him a chance to catch the ball. It was such a fast play, such a fast little just sequence going on in that drive where maybe the refs just don't like pay attention to that, or they're looking, or they're just trying to get everything set. They're kind of worried about the clock, looking at that. Because if you legitimately look at that, I mean, the receiver, it was a fine throw where if the receiver wasn't being pushed out of bounds, he maybe could have made a play on it, Smith, but he couldn't because the DB had him just draped out of bounds, not even giving him a chance. I'm not going to blame the game on this at all. All right. Because when you have two 40-yard kicks, and I know it's the Windy City, we're in straight downtown Chicago at Wrigley Field. There wasn't much elements to deal with here. The two kicks that he had today that would have tied the game and then ultimately won it if you made both of them were so bad. Just terrible. All the way to the right, and then I'm pretty sure the game-winning or the game-tying field goal went wide left, not even close. I mean, it wasn't even close. And you can say all you want about like, well, it's a high pressure situation. They needed to run him out when they couldn't take a timeout to really think about it or get him in the right headspace. Or you can say, well, Northwestern iced him. He had to have the heart pumping. Of course he was. But that, I mean, two opportunities with 40-yard field goals, and he misses both of them, and the Gophers suffer because of it. This goes back to that pass interference call that should have been called, either one of them. And imagine if it was, if both of them were called, but the one that should have been called on our tight end on the flat, that one definitely should have been called. And it sways so much because that turns that kick into a 25 or 30 yarder. It turns it into a more like a PAT, really, because it's a 10 or 15-yard penalty. And it's going to move you up either way. We didn't move up at all. We moved up 4 yards from the Smith reception on that drag route, but 4 yards, it could have been 15 with a pass interference. And imagine if both of those were called, we could have had the chance to maybe even, because if that second one was called, I don't know where we would have been on the field at that point, but we would have been very close to the end zone. And it would have been a chip shot to send it into overtime. So, but you can't blame it on that because you can't miss two kicks in the game. You can't. I am done with that last drive. So that is my thoughts there. All right. Looking at the Gophers secondary, obviously on defense here, you have Coy Parrish, you have Kerry Brown, and Zaquan Bryan. Those are your three playmakers. The two big ones being Coy and Kerry Brown, obviously, they are shut down. But other than them, Darius Green, and I think it's Mike Gerald. Mike Gerald was absolutely dog crap balls today. He was very bad. He was terrible at covering Wildy, and I thought his name was Wild because that's just what you would assume, but it's Wildy, the receiver on Northwestern. But either way, Green and Gerald, they couldn't guard the broadside of a barn in this game. They were getting beat on in and out breaking routes. The Gophers wanted to blitz. They wanted to stop the run, which they actually did in the first half. Como Lafe had that 43-yard touchdown in the first quarter, and after that in the first half, he had like 18 yards, I think. They stopped the run, but that resulted in Preston Stone picking them apart piece by piece. And the two guys that were the main contributors to letting that happen were Green and Gerald. They were getting blown by. They were getting their hips crossed over all game. And I mean, it had to come to a point where they had to go off the field, and we needed to keep Kerry Brown on Wildy, which caused other stuff. Willie was not a huge factor in that fourth quarter. It was number 10. I forget I forget that second wide receiver on Northwestern, but that was all him. Okay. But you cannot give the secondary all that shade and disrespect, because you have to go back to the fact that the Gophers had 0 sacks today. And like I said, a handful of pressures. First of all, no sacks in a game. It's not a winning formula already. All right. But you can't blame it as much. Yeah, the secondary struggled at guarding receivers, but when you are having to guard guys for more than 2.5 seconds, you can't. It's impossible. The corner position is the other than quarterback is, my opinion, the hardest position to play in football. And you can't expect them to be able to run around the entire field. The football field is a big space for these wide receivers to run around. And if you aren't getting pressure on the quarterback, and I don't care if it's Fernando Mendoza lighting it up in Indiana or Preston Stone at Northwestern, he is going to light you up. Any quarterback would and the thing is that's so I don't want to say embarrassing, but it is embarrassing. The Northwestern O-line ranks very low in pass block efficiency in the Big Ten. They're not very high up there. And for God's sake, run efficiency too, run blocking. They're not great in either aspect. Okay. And for them to get bullied, like Eastern had a terrible day today. Smith couldn't get past anyone, but he was getting double teamed a lot, which good on Northwestern to get 2 guys on Smith, but just not you can't have that. It's not that is my biggest gripe about the game, and I think that's the main reason why the Gophers came up short today is because Preston Stone could bake a cake back there is basically what he could do. Let me throw a positive in there, okay? A positive is that I talked about yesterday how Drake Lindsay, I talked this morning. I don't know why I keep saying yesterday. I talked this morning about how Drake Lindsay could exploit some holes on this Northwestern defense. And my gosh, Drake Lindsay he was just a master today. He showed people why we had an expectation coming into this year. Finding guys downfield. His deep balls are getting way more touch on them, and he is finding his top receivers. We brought in Javon Tracy from Miami, Ohio, to have games exactly like this, and then an emergence from the freshman Jalen Smith. And then when you have Darius Taylor and Boy running the ball well, and Darius Taylor being the receiving threat he is right now, it's a great offense if Drake Lindsay comes to play. I mean, the only worry is that he just doesn't show up for the big games right now, but he is a freshman. You got to give him a year. But if you go off of this, if you think of so this year we're 6-5, we're bowl eligible, yippee ki good stuff there. But I keep thinking to next year, because if you do think of next year, if the Gophers can keep their pieces this offseason from the transfer portal, like Jalen Smith, and then you saw Malachi Coleman haul in a huge deep pass in the fourth quarter, a big play there, and then you got a speedster in the waiting, Kenrick Lanier. Guys like this make this team next year, and you could have. I think they'll have Javon Tracy back for next year. And gosh dang it, Darius Taylor is a junior. There's a chance he comes back. I don't know how high that chance is. I don't know how his stock in the NFL draft really is, because to be completely honest, Darius, he's a great receiving back and he's elusive, but he's not very fast. He's kind of just a little bit more of a run through you guy and avoid and spin and get away from a guy, but he's not he's not that quick, is what I'm saying. But Boy, he'll be back next year. And this offense with Drake Lindsay doing what he's been doing now, if you look at the schedule next year, there's a lot of favorable matchups. And yes, a lot could change in an offseason with the transfer portal and everything that goes on in college football now. But next year, it goes Eastern Illinois, Mississippi State, and Akron. You get Mississippi State at home and you don't have to travel to an SEC environment, which that's a win right there. But the toughest games on the Gophers schedule are Indiana, Iowa, and then Michigan. Michigan going to have Bryce Underwood next year. Iowa, we can't beat them. That's just plain and simple. We all know that. And then you get Indiana, which Indiana, Fernando Mendoza will be in the NFL at that point. But Indiana, Kurt Cignetti is going to get another quarterback this offseason, whether it be internal or external from the transfer portal. Okay. But the great thing with those 3 games, you get all 3 of those games at home. You get Iowa at home this next year, and then you get Michigan. And, well, actually, sorry, Indiana is a road game, which stinks. But you get Iowa and Michigan at home. I was thinking of the Mississippi State game. You get an SEC team to come into Minnesota. But then your other 2 home games next year are Northwestern and UCLA. I don't know if Nico Iamaleava is going to be. I think he's probably going to stay in college. I would be shocked if he went into the NFL draft this year. UCLA should be a good team next year. Northwestern should improve because they are rapidly improving with their new coach now. And then your road games are a depleted Penn State team, which Penn State I expect to make a big hire this offseason or even maybe in the next coming weeks or so after moving on from James Franklin. But they are you have so many decommits from Penn State that you see, and there's so many guys that are questioning the whole program as a whole there. And you have no word, and we can't tell how Penn State will be next year. But then your 3 other road games are Wisconsin, Washington, and Purdue. Washington's a tough place to play, but Washington hasn't been just an amazing team now ever since Kalen DeBoer left for Alabama, Washington's been middle of the pack. And then Purdue and Wisconsin. Those are 2 winnable games for sure next year, not even knowing how the transfer portal goes this offseason. You have a very, very favorable schedule next year with a lot of guys on your offense that can get it done and on the defense. Kerry Brown, Coy Parrish, both sophomores. There's guys on the D line that will be in the back next year. If you can hit on just a few transfers, I really like the team next year, but all we got to worry about is just getting the axe next week against the gosh dang Wisconsin Badgers, because that's all that matters. All right. I think it's time to move on to our first Minnesota Twins talk of the whole podcast. All right, because the Twins, they've been making their 40-man moves recently in the past few days, keeping players from getting poached. And there's been a few trades that we're going to run through right here. All right. The first, by the way, I'll just get right to it here. I don't want to waste any time. We're already 24 minutes into this. All right. And the Twins, a week ago, they traded for Eric Orsi from the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for a minor leaguer from us, Jacob Christing. I don't know a lot about Jacob Christing, but I know a lot about Eric Orsi now. He's a 28-year-old. He was flipping between AAA and the majors last year. Majority of the time he spent was in the majors. All right, he pitched in 33 games for Tampa last season and posted a 3.02 ERA, 40 strikeouts, and 41.2 innings. He has a 3-pitch mix between a 4-seam slider and a split finger changeup. His splits between righties and lefties are basically even with the amount of batters for each side, and then the average and literally every stat, like slugging percentage, all of it is basically the same between righties and lefties, which is just great to have that versatility in the bullpen here. So that's a plus right there. All right, going through his pitches, his fastball, based on film and baseball savant, his fastball is very interesting because it is straight, but it almost has a little bit of a rise to it, almost like a Joe Ryan type 4-seam, except Joe Ryan has a lower arm angle, which we all kind of know. It looks fun. It looks like he's just whipping it in there. Eric Orsi, he doesn't have that super low arm angle as Joe Ryan does, but he does get a bit of lift on his fastballs, which is just fun to see. His best pitch is by far his split finger change, and then his slider is his third pitch. His fastball is a secondary pitch, but his split finger change has a ton of in-breaking movement on a righty. And from a lefty, it's obviously out breaking, but he gets a lot of whiffs and a lot of swings and misses on that pitch down and away. Expected batting average for hitters against on his split finger is 199. The expected batting average. The actual batting average is I think it said 228. And he didn't let up any home runs on this pitch last year and has a 32% whiff percentage. An MLB average is about 24%. And that is a great spot to be in with your main pitch having that big of a whiff rate through basically a whole year in the MLB. He had 33 games played in the MLB or pitched in the MLB last year, like I said, with the 40 innings. His fastball is also very good and doesn't let up big hits with it at all. He let up 2 home runs on it last year. The problem is the slider. I'm going to point out problems when I see it. The problem is the slider. The slider has a 400 plus average against it. Okay. I will say it's more of a location and accuracy thing with it because he throws a hard slider. His split finger is about 85 to 86 miles per hour, but his slider comes in at 89, and his top slider got clocked at 90.4. So it's a fast slider. It moves a ton, but he hangs it sometimes, and that's where he gets into trouble. As for if I like this trade, I personally really do. I didn't know a lot about Eric before, and I've read up a lot about him, and I've watched a lot of film on his pitches, but I think it's great to get because our bullpen was very, very weak, and obviously free agency is going to be coming, and we'll end up likely signing a few veterans to kind of help out a little bit, maybe get a good first half, and kind of sell off at the deadline those guys. But to get a guy for basically just a younger minor leaguer that hasn't shown much in Jacob Christing, I think it's a great move, and it's a great way to just get an arm in the bullpen where we really desperately need it. Not a high price at all. All right. And then, so that was the first trade. We've made 2 trades in the past week. That was the first one. The second one was for a catcher from the Baltimore Orioles named Alex Johnson. The main reason for this, Christian Vasquez electing for free agency. That comes as no surprise to everyone. I think a lot of Twins fans would be happy to get Vasquez off the team. But Alex Johnson for the St. Paul Saints contributor, Peyton Eels. Johnson will likely be be our second catcher behind Ryan Jeffers this year. And Johnson's had definitely a weird career. He had a great college career at New Mexico State, and then he was drafted sixth overall, and obviously in the first round. So the 6th best player in this draft, supposedly, back in 2014 by the Seattle Mariners, and he has just not panned out. For the reputation coming out of college, hitting wise, he has not panned out one tiny bit so far. But that's the thing. He was never necessarily known for his bat. His defense, and he's been just a reliable defensive contributor for basically his whole career in the minors and up into the majors now with the Orioles. He has a consistent pop time. He's throwing guys out. I don't know the exact rate. I could look that up, but I don't know the exact rate of him of people stealing on him, but a little bit more about his bat, because the defensive side, we got that with Vasquez for the most part, and now we're kind of replacing it. He's 30 years old, by the way, so he's getting to that cliff where he needs to make something happen if he wants to spend more years in the league. And if he doesn't, he could be in a tricky spot here. But his career in the majors, he's had 900 or shoot, I read that wrong. He's had 393 at bats. He's batting 153, 11 homers, 32 RBIs, and an OPS of 527. So not good really in any department there. Through 393 at bats in the majors. And if you look at his minor league stats, it's not that different, to be honest. But Last year was his first full year in the majors. He played in 91 games for the Orioles, which was good for their standards. And I think that was a lot contributing to the fact of the Orioles were just riddled with a bunch of injuries last year. Probably going to have a bit of a better year next year when they get guys back and healthy. But he did play 91 games with the Orioles, which you did see a huge, and I mean big improvement with the hitting. Like I said, like I said, he in his career is batting 153 for an average, but last year, through those 91 games, he is batting 220, 5 homers, and a 763 OPS. I may remind you the MLB average for OPS is 750. Excuse me. 750 OPS is the MLB average. And he hit 763 for an OPS last year. Above average hitter is what we're looking at from last year. So, as for if I like the trade or not, it's weird because you could be seeing kind of just maybe a fluky year. It's his first time getting actual runway with the majors, but that's the thing. A lot of guys you see that with where they're not gonna. A lot of guys don't come up and produce right away. You got to have a special type of ball player to do that. But then you might have, because this is, like I said, this is his first time getting some runway on a major league team last year with the Orioles, and he took the most of it. But before that, he had stops and he had hiccups when he did play in the majors for other reasons. Being called up, he struggled until last year, which it can flip the other way. We have a very, very key representation of that in Edward Julian coming up in 23, hitting just the top off the ball. Just he was hitting the ball great, and then the next year, 2024, he has one of the worst seasons I've seen out of a infielder, Twins infielder in a while. He was very bad, but it's hard to say how Johnson will produce this year behind the plate, and it's hard to say how much of a split there will be between him and Ryan Jeffers for starting games, because Jeffers is obviously going to have a higher role this year. Vasquez being a veteran, he could rely, and that's the thing though. Johnson is a veteran too. He's 30 years old, just not an MLB veteran yet. So if I had to say, I do like this trade because, to be completely honest, you're not going to get much more, or you might even get more out of Johnson at the plate if he has the same type of year as last year. I'm not even asking him to improve at the plate. As long as we get that defensive catcher like Vasquez was, I'd like to have someone better than Vasquez at the plate. But I'm not asking for a lot. But Vasquez costed $10 million, and Johnson is a league minimum contract right now, and it's an easy way to get the second catcher for a team, and for a team like us who we're not going to be the most competitive team next year. I mean, unless some miracle happens, we sell the team, we put in a bunch of money, and we sign a bunch of guys, which obviously isn't going to happen. So we're not going to be as competitive as people want. So this would be a great way to see if you can find a diamond in the rough, see if you can find maybe a catcher for the next few years even. So I mean, I like it. It's a very cheap way to get out of it, or to get into a catcher 2 position there. So I don't mind it. All right. Other news here: the Twins have selected contracts for the 40-man roster beyond already guys in the majors and stuff. I think there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 guys that they selected a few days ago. And I'm just going to go over briefly what these guys kind of mean to the organization, maybe an estimated time of arrival in the MLB, but and just kind of tell you how their career's gone so far. So, one of our most sought out guys in our system, we've been asking for some lefty relievers, lefty pitchers for a while. We can never get them. Connor Prelip has been selected by the Twins to make to get on the 40-man. He is the best one of the best lefties in our system right now. He had the best year yet when he made it all the way up to AAA last year, starting in Wichita. in Double-A. He pitched 82 innings last year, had 98 strikeouts. He did walk 31 guys. His whip was 1.51, which means he's letting the ball over the plate. He's getting hits. He's letting up the walks, like I said. It's still a control thing, but that is the control issue happens with a ton of guys in their minor league career. It's not uncommon at all for these guys. But he's gotten better every year he's pitched, and he will most likely get some time in the majors based on injuries or really anything else this next upcoming year. But he'll be starting in St. Paul, I would imagine. Actually, I'm pretty sure I would be able to predict that right now. He will start in St. Paul. Because no, he's not ready quite yet. I'd like to see a half a season in St. Paul out of him and see where he's at after that. But he was the first one selected here. No one can get Connor from us. Next one, this one's a fun one. This one is definitely something I didn't think was going to happen, but they selected John Klein. All right, John Klein. He started in Single A Cedar Rapids last year, and he worked his way up to AAA. I saw him pitch at St. Paul once, and he has some fun stuff. He is a 23-year-old from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, pitching now he's going to be pitching for his hometown team here, which is fun. He worked up to AAA very fast. He's a 6'5" righty. He has a fastball, slider, curveball, and just a regular changeup, I'm pretty sure. It is very nice to see a hard-throwing righty come up through the system like this pretty quick. He started in – I was wrong about that. He started in Wichita last year, not Cedar Rapids. Pitched there until the end of July, and then he pitched in St. Paul for 1.5 months. Over the whole year last year, he recorded a 3.98 ERA, and then over 3.98 ERA over 106.1 innings pitched, 128 strikeouts, and a 234 average against, which he has walk issues, which, like I was just saying with Prelip, until you get to the MLB and you can really hone in your control issues and placing these pitches where you want in the minors, we need you striking out guys. We need to see that you have the stuff to make it in the MLB. We can worry about the control issues as we're making that switch. But he had the 234 average against is one of the best in our system for pitchers. And he just needs to keep improving. Like I said, the control issue, it's going to get very like wish-washy, and a lot of it's, I'm going to end up saying it a ton, but he's got to control what he can control. And the swing and misses will still come because he racked up 128 strikeouts over 106 innings. And if you do the math, that is a strikeout in every inning, basically. Yeah. So that is John Klein. He was selected. And then the next one, Andrew Morris. This is a more known guy. He's been on St. Paul for 2 years now. And even if this is some stuff, we'll talk about it more on the show sometime, but the Twins looking at trade partners for Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan. Even if the Twins don't trade Pablo and Ryan, Morris will get time in the majors this upcoming year. He's been in St. Paul for 2 years now. He had a bit of a down year this past year. He just couldn't find really the swing and miss. He was letting a lot of balls in play, wasn't getting the strikeout numbers that he wanted. But he is kind of like the next man up. He's going to be right on the fringe of the MLB roster to start next year, unless they do sign a couple of relievers and really solidify the bullpen. But he will be in the race for it, and he will find time next year with the injuries. Next one, Gabriel Gonzalez. People may remember this name. He was the main piece of the Jorge Polanco trade, along with Justin Topa coming over. But Gabriel Gonzalez, super young. I mean, the kid is 21 years old. He got here, obviously, when we traded Jorge after the 23 season when he was 19. And he had a bad first year in 24. He did. But last year, and that got us worried because he was known to be a great contact hitter, have a little power sometimes. But last year, he proved to be one of the best hitters in our system. His slashing line, 329 average, an on-base percentage of 395, and an OPS of 908, which all of those are above MLB league average, above minor league average. and that is a lot of promise from a 21-year-old. Um, and it again, like, he is 21 years old, and he's hit a high with all those stats, and he made it up to AAA as a 21-year-old, and he got selected to be on the 40 man at 21 years old. He's moving quick, and what I'm saying is, like, he's at a high. How can he kind of ride that high and keep it going? Because you will. I mean, if he improves those numbers, that would be an insane stat right there. Climbing off of those numbers already, batting 329, OPS of 908. That would be crazy, but you have to expect a bit of a drop off. I mean, I could definitely see like a 270 average year coming out of him, or maybe even less than that. But it's going to be him getting used to AAA pitching now, because he's going to be starting there. He's going to be starting the year there, and it's a lot to remember that he is 21 years old, even though he just had a heck of a year. I think, unless Kalen Culpepper had a better average year, I think he was the best, or one of the best hitters for average in the system. But yeah, he's 21 years old. You got to be a little bit patient with him. Good old JJ McCarthy treatment for him. All right, next one. Hendry Mendez. No, not a lot of people would know this name. He is one of the pieces we got back in the Harrison Bader trade at the fire sale this past trade deadline. He came to us and played on Double-A, and he had himself a great year. He just continued his success from the Phillies organization all the way into Wichita for us here. And the thing about Mendez that's very striking, which this jumps off the table, I didn't put his OPS or on base percentage really right now. I'm just looking at the average, but it's the same thing with all of these stats, like average, like against, an average plus, or like average expected. That's that too. It climbs each time from 2022. 2022 was his first full year in the minors, and it climbs, which is it's a fun fact to see that, because every time you climb in the minors, you're climbing into better competition, single A to Double-A to AAA, and then to the majors. It all gets harder the more you go. His first year in 2022, he batted 244. In 23, he batted 258. And 2024, he batted 284. And then last year, being traded to the Twins, he just carried over a 299 average, which it's very positive coming in. Like I said, getting all the way up in the system like that, and he keeps improving. I'm assuming we're going to see him at some point on St. Paul. I think he will probably end up starting on Wichita, maybe on St. Paul's roster, but he's another. I mean, it's fun to see some of these guys have good years off of the trade deadline, because it was hard as a Twins fan watching that trade deadline happen last year. But it is positive seeing some of these guys really making a name for themselves in their own way, being at a new place, new fresh start for them. And this one is maybe the one I'm most excited about. I don't think any of us were very pleased with the Louis Varland trade. All right, I definitely wasn't. Co-producer Trev for the show, Trevor Kramer, he'll be on Monday. We talked many times about it. We just hated this Louis Varland trade. I mean, again, you can't trade a guy that you have team control until 2030, who is producing the way Louis was for us. And he's a hometown kid. I'm not going to get into it because I'm going to get too mad doing that. Kendry Rojas was the main main player we got back for Louis Varland. And this guy is, like I said earlier with Connor Prelip, we've been hunting for these lefties for our bullpen ever since Taylor Rogers left, really. And we've never had a reliable one. We've had Cody Funderburk, Giovanni Moran. Like, it hasn't been pretty as Twins fans. We haven't had that hard-throwing lefty. But guess what? Kendry Rojas pitched a bunch for the Saints when he came here, and he started a few games. But either way, his stuff is nasty, hard throwing lefty, throwing 97. He has an 86 mile per hour slider and an 86 mile per hour changeup. It's a big difference between that fastball and those off speed pitches. He is only 22 years old, so he is a very young pitcher, very raw. Last year, he suffered a 4.7 ERA, but along with that ERA, he is the biggest he's the biggest point out of the control issues I'm talking about, because I mean, young players, they just have control issues unless you're Paul Skeens. But he had that 2.7 ERA, but he is a strikeout machine. He had 67 innings pitched last year over both Blue Jays system and the Twins, and he had over 90 strikeouts, 91 I think, in those 67 innings pitched. He also had 32 walks in 67 innings. So that's that control issue. He has great stuff. His fastball riding up on hitters, even on lefties inside. It was fun to watch that for sure. But 90 strikeouts to 32 walks in 67 innings. It shows that he has the stuff to strike guys out, but he has to obviously place it better and worry about the control more. And that's something that he's going to, and the other stat that I wanted to share is that like batters also hit 270 off of him for an average, which again, that's also not great. But when you don't have control, you're leaving sliders over the plate. When you're leaving changeups down and like down right in the middle of the zone, you're leaving these pitches, and that's exactly what happened to him. But the pitches that he does throw are gross, are quick, are sharp. It's fun, and he is, I think, our 8th prospect now, a top 10 prospect from the Louis Varland trade, and he's 22 years old. He needs some patience too. But if I had to say, I mean, probably not this year for the major leagues unless a lot of crap happens, unless we go full trade deadline again, we get rid of Pablo, Ryan, and maybe he finds some time next year. But I'd assume that 2027 would be the emergence year of him. But there you go. All 6 guys that were protected and added to the 40-man, their contracts selected. I have a couple other news bits. Deshaun Kiersey Jr., he is elected to hit free agency. Just really nothing off of that. We needed to open up a roster spot because the Twins have tendered Trevor Larnach. He will receive a raise in the arbitration process in January. And if I had to guess, so he made $2.1 million this year. If I had to make a guess, I think it would be between $4 and $4.5 million for Trevor coming up, which yeah, good. Get Trevor again for his 6th year, but it's Trevor. He's in just a kind of a lull. He's just, you don't use him on defense much. He's kind of a defensive liability sometimes. And as a bat, he's an average bat when he should be. When he's DHing a ton and he's not producing at the plate that you would want, at the clip you'd want. But you get him back, you get him for another year for pretty cheap. So it's nothing you can really hang your head on there. Justin Topa has also agreed to a contract over the 2026 season with a mutual agreement for 2027, being paid $1 million this upcoming year. So it's just the mutual agreement. He could be here in 2027 based on how this year goes. Maybe he gets traded at the deadline if he's having a good year. That is all I got for Twins news. So we went over the contract selected for the 40-man, a few trades, but the Twins have been a little bit active. I'm not exactly sure when, or I can't really tell when the big names off the free agency market will go, but we'll keep you posted on that. And that's all I got today. Gophers lose. That was rough, that ending. And I am 0-3 on my predictions so far on the show, which not a place I want to be in either. But either way, it has been fun talking about the Twins' moves and the Gophers' debacle again, just like the Wolves. But I will chat with you guys again soon.